Well, this is the piece.
This is the piece?
Yes.
Are you telling me that this is it? This is scenery? Have you ever been to Stonehenge?
No, I haven't been to Stonehenge.
The triptychs are 20 feet high.
Look, this is what I was asked to build. 18 inches. Right here, it's specified. 18 inches. I was given this napkin. I mean...
Forget this!
In ancient times, hundreds of years before the dawn of history.
Well, hi, it's Gayle with BERNINA of Naperville, and yeah, I done did it. I certainly had my Spinal Tap Stonehenge moment this month, but you know what? All is well because we improvise, right? Well, I still hope that you have a lot of fun because we've got this pile of projects to add to make this mystery come alive and to figure out what is this thing gonna look like at the end, right? So let's roll up our sleeves and let's hop on over to the presentation deck that I put together for you this month.
So can you believe it's already October? After today, we're going to have 2 more projects left in this mystery quilt, and it will no longer be a mystery. I can't wait. I don't know about you. I've enjoyed it, but like I said, there were some struggles this month that I'm going to make sure that I lead you the right way. You know, the instructions are good, but you know, the scale, questionable. Okay. So you can find all of our previous video tutorials and presentation decks on page 2 of this interactive presentation deck that I'm working with. So don't be alarmed about that if you are joining us midway through, or I mean, I know some of you that haven't even started yet, right? And then this is a little collection of what we've made so far. And of course, there are no more kits available. I'm sorry for that. But each month I do give you all of your resources that you need. And I remind you of you're going to provide the batting, the stabilizer, thread, backing, and love. So we're going to need some wash away stabilizer this month because this project is done in 2 sections. We've got freestanding lace flowers that we're going to make first, then those get attached to the main design. So these are the list of the thread colors that you need, and I am using a special foot and a special double needle this month. So we'll talk about that in just a moment, but let's have a look at what we're doing to make these lace flowers. So this block is done in 2 steps, and hooping number 1 is done with 2 layers of water-soluble stabilizer in a hoop. Then you have your peachy thread that's going to also have a matching bobbin, and we're going to stitch our freestanding lace flowers. Now there's also a little bit of our charcoal color that we'll need as well. So wind a bobbin of charcoal, wind a bobbin of the peach, and hoop these 2 layers of water-soluble stabilizer in your hoop. And I'm using the small plant hoop. It's one of my favorites. So I did duplicate the 3 flowers so that 2 flowers will fit in the small hoop, and that way you can just stitch out all of your freestanding lace flowers and they can dry while we construct the rest of the blocks. And then once you have your designs all set, you're going to just send them to your machine. I'm choosing to send mine via Wi-Fi. And now we're all set. And we're going to make sure that thread away is okay in this, but in general, I like to keep it a practice to turn thread away off. And we don't need quilt settings. We don't need anything like that. So we're going to say, okay. And now just a quick little bath. And while these dry, we can start constructing the rest of our block. So now let's do something really fun. Okay, so now on to our second step, which is our block with the flower applique and where we're going to put those stitched out freestanding lace flowers. So we're going to do something different, like I mentioned. We're going to actually be doing pin tuck stitching that I made this little grid, right? And we're going to try to aim for it going right on top of the lines, but don't get too worked up if it's not perfect. At the end of the day, when everything is together, you're not going to be focusing on that, right? But it's just a fun way to see all of the versatility and capabilities of our machine. So we did the flower designs, and now let's take our attention towards these designs. So in the second step, it's going to use one embroidery design from which we will make 2 blocks. And you can see here, I have this is the medium border clamp hoop right here with the designs fit in. And then if you have a 5 series, you're going to have to do your designs one at a time. But I will remind you that if you have the medium magnet hoop for your 5 series, you will be able to fit this block with the quilting behind it in your machine to do this technique. But we're using the 9 series for this video. Another thing that I want to comment on is that these files are a tight fit in the magnet hoop on the 7 and 9 series machines. So let's have a look at what might happen. So I've made you some files to use this month, and the both blocks combined flower here includes the cross-hatching file that's been digitized. Now, one of the things that I want you to be mindful of is that this, if we look here, is a tight fit in our large hoop, particularly on the large hoop for the Bernina 7 series. So just really make sure that it's centered in your hoop. And if it does happen to come into your hoop, so just make sure that you position it maybe to the right or left so that red perimeter does not remain around your design. And then also, I have to point out that in my demonstrations of making these files, this is when I had that Stonehenge moment, right? The Spinal Tap moment where my design wasn't exactly to scale. I have corrected them for you, so you're going to follow my instructions. It's just that they're going to look a little bit smaller in the hoop. I hope you can forgive me for this. You know, I just couldn't reshoot the video. I didn't have time. So it's good, I think, to let you guys know that things don't always work out perfect for me, right? And then speaking of the files, I do have the files in a zipped folder for you to download right here if you want to use my designs that are correct, I swear. We usually do these blocks 2 at a time in the hoop because I've got lots of things to do and little time to do it in, right? So we're going to hoop up our lightweight cutaway mesh in our hoop. So I have 2 hoops here because either one would work, as well as the maxi hoop, the giant hoop, or whatever, if you're going to do a 2-in-1. If you have a 5 series machine, sadly, you will have to do each block individually because there's just not a hoop that can accommodate you doing 2 of these larger blocks in one. The smaller blocks, yes, but the larger blocks, no. So what you see here on the left is the Bernina magnet hoop. And so I thought I would demonstrate this to you today. I'm going to just unsnap my magnet hoop and I'm going to take out this protective insert. This is what kind of prevents you from pinching your fingers and things like that. I also don't need my template, so I'm just going to take that off the back. I keep my template with this guy because seriously, I lose things a lot. It's sad, but true. So we just take our stabilizer and we put it into place like that. And you just want to be careful that you don't pinch your fingers. So we're going to be very careful when we align these because these magnets are very strong. The force is strong. So I'm just going to take it like this and drop it. Okay. Now it didn't quite get centered, but that's okay. We're just going to pull it that way and pull it this way just a little. There we go. And now we're going to just slide this work down like so to get it nice and flat. Ta-da. Okay. Now, this is another one. If you don't like the magnets, you do have to know what you got in your body and that kind of thing with those magnet hoops. There is a disclaimer on these. If you have a pacemaker or something, please be warned. So if that's the case for you, you might want a clamp hoop like this. So this one, it's got these clamps that we love, right? And these hold the work really tight and really taut. Sometimes my leanings go a little bit towards this type of product. And this one comes with different sets of clamps. So for instance, if you're doing a quilt and you need to do heavier stuff, like you've got your batting, your top, and your backing in there, you use these shorter ones like this, right? But we're going to only be hooping up the thin stabilizer, so we're going to go for these long ones. Now, the long ones I think are a little bit harder to remove, which is why it comes with this clamp remover. So you just slip your clamp in there like so to pop your clamps off. So if I can show this to you at the side, right? You're slipping your little clamp remover in there like that, and you're pushing down and it pops it off. Just like that. Now I've got hands of steel, ladies and gentlemen, so I can probably take these off without this tool. Then once they're off and you want to hoop this one up, we just put it in there like so. I kind of go across the street on these. So everything is kind of in here a bit more evenly, right? But you can see that there's no pulling or tugging necessary on this hoop. Those clamps do such a good job. Draw that stabilizer up. There's a little bracket there. There we go. Did I? There. See, I told you I lose things. I can lose things standing still. Okay, so whichever you would prefer, whichever method, both of these are going to suffice perfectly, but I did have a request to use the magnet hoop on these Kimberbells, so I'm going to put the magnet hoop on today.
Now, one of the things that we have to do when we're working with our magnet hoop is we're going to choose our magnet hoop. Now, it automatically selected the large magnet hoop for this project because it always picks the smallest hoop possible, right? So it's already been selected here in my machine. Now, if you're working on a Bernina 990, 880, 7 series, as long as it's the 735, 770, and 790 style machines, you will be able to upload a firmware and install that on your machine so that it will be able to see these magnet hoops. So if you're unfamiliar or you're nervous about doing that, we also sell the USB sticks at our store, and we'll load the firmware that you need onto the USB stick for you, as long as you tell us in the comments at checkout what machine you have. Otherwise, you get a nice little call from one of us at the store asking you. Okay, so we've got our magnet L hoop on there. And now I'm ready to stitch. Notice that I also took the time to adjust the colors so they're correct colors for your stitch sequences for you if you download the files that we provided. I also include the grid already in there for you. So let's go ahead and stitch this out. I'm going to go ahead and say thread away is off. Everything else is cool. Okay. And now it wants me to attach my hoop, which I'm going to do. Okay. And now the machine is asking me, which hoop do you have? Mag M is the medium, Mag MB is the medium border, and Mag L is the large. So I'm going to touch the large one and see how it's now highlighted. So this is the honor policy. So make sure that you really look carefully at these hoops when you attach one of your magnet hoops. So now I'm going to say, okay. And now it's going to wiggle it around for me. And now we're going to stitch the placement line for my project batting.
Now, normally we would just stitch our placement lines for the project batting and then have our little smaller pieces of our project batting to put over those lines. But the way that I want you to do this is to cut an actual 10.5 inch by 18-inch piece of project batting that will fit in that area of the hoop. And so now we're going to stitch it down, and it will stitch the rectangles that represent each block to hold that batting into position. So for something a little bit extra fun, so we're going to do our quilting with this twin needle. Now this is a size 80 2.5 universal tip. And what this is if you can see here, it's a one little shank that goes in the machine with two needles side by side. So we're going to thread our machine. You can do this a couple different ways. We're just going to do some cross hatching with this. So we can use our regular cream thread. And if you're daring, you can pair it with a darker thread, or you could pair it with another spool of cream if you had two spools. You could also wind a bobbin of the cream so that we have two spools, and that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to have a bobbin that I'm using at the top of my machine like I would use a spool of thread. So that's the first thing that we're going to learn how to do. Because of that double needle, we will not be able to use our number 26 foot because it's a little too small for our double needle. But we have other options. We've got our 44C foot that we use with our cutwork tool. That's going to allow us to go all the way up to 9 mm. But the disadvantage of this is that that base of that foot means that we're going to lose a little bit of the perimeter of the border of our hoop area. So I'm not going to use this one. There's another foot, the number 24 open toe foot, and that could accommodate our 2 to 5 mm wide stitching, but I don't like how those little toes could get stuck on things. So I've decided that I'm going to use this number 15 foot. It's got like a little ramp on it like that, so it can glide over like loose threads in your hoop. So I am pairing it, the 15, with my double needle. Okay, so I'm going to take my double needle, I'm going to take my fabric over to my machine, and let's get ready to have some fun, right?
Now it's time to change our needle to the double needle. So we're going to start, I'm going to unthread the machine. I'm going to hold on to my needle because I'm going to need this embroidery needle later when we do the rest of our flower. But for right now, this has a flat part of the needle that goes towards the back of the machine. And now we're going to thread. So I want to show you something. If you look here, I have wound a bobbin that goes here, and then I'm using my cream thread here. So as I pull this off the machine, so my cream thread is under this guide, and then my bobbin is coming from the spool, and I'm just pulling it back this way. And then together, I'm pulling them both like this. And then one's gonna go on one side of that little piece that wiggles back and forth there. And then there's another piece. It's that piece, it's like a little flat piece that is kind of sitting out in there, right? And so then once they're there, they go up and by the thread take up like so, just like you would be threading your machine regularly. And now we go down, and then they go behind here, and one goes this way and one doesn't go behind the guard. That's how I do it anyway. And then we don't want to use our our automatic needle threader. It won't know what to do with itself. So we're going to use our standard needle threader. Okay. And one more thing to make sure of is that you have your zigzag needle plate in. Just there. Okay, so I stopped it and took it off because I got the idea. Don't you love it when I work on these things with you guys in real time? I got the idea that I wanted my stitching to follow the lines of our plaid. So with that said, I need to actually stitch the grid first. There's a method to my madness here. So we're gonna stitch this grid on our piece here. And I'll just have to put more glue on, but don't be alarmed. And that's the fun thing about our machines is that I can stitch this, then I can back up and stitch it again. I don't have to add a duplicate, stitching. Now we're simply going to back up our stitching to go back to color number 2. And now we're going to take our grid, and this is why it's nice to have 2 separate pieces, right? And this grid is the same as the grid that I drew here. So we're just going to make sure that this hangs over by at least 1/4 of an inch here. And we're going to place this on a square, use our 505 glue stick to just make sure that stays in place. Then we're going to check a piece over here to make sure that a grid will show up, will be stuck there. And then this, hopefully, we'll keep our piece nice and straight. And now this is assuming that the print was printed straight on the fabric. And then I would do the same thing to the second piece here. Once again, we have to make sure that this hangs over by at least 1/4 of an inch. And it may not be perfect because fabric isn't always printed perfectly straight, but at least the cross hatching will be kind of lined up. So let's go.
Okay, let's have a look at this. So one of the things I also want to point out to you is I lined it up right on the more bold crosses, but we could have also lined it up on these other ones as well. So you play around with how you would like to do this if you choose to do the double needle look.
Now it's time to unthread and put our regular needle back in, and only one spool of thread at a time. Okay, so now I'm just going to go through the thread sequencing, and you've done applique flowers in this before, so I'm going to meet you back here once it's time to stitch on our little freestanding lace flowers.
So now, once we have our little tacking marks, with our second to last color that's stitched out, it's now time to place our little flowers. And I'm going to put the large one here, the medium one here, and the small one there, like that. And we can glue them into position, or we can tape them. When you glue, just leave it for a minute so they dry. Now, once the glue is dry, let's stitch them out. And just be careful of that. So now lift our foot, get it back on there again. And I'm gonna, there we go. That one came out better. Okay, so now we're taking our work out of the hoop, and you just have to pry those magnet hoops apart. And before you clamp them together, make sure you put that protective piece in between there, and make sure you affix your template to it. And then we're all set to go. Now let's trim. And I have a question for you. If you went through all of these steps and then you went to trim and things weren't lining up, what would you do? Like these beautiful little blocks we made, I went and put my ruler on them, and I'm like, why are these 5.5 inches by like 7 inches when they're supposed to be 6.5 by 8.5? You can really even hear my hand grimacing as I'm getting ready to cut this. And this is where I discovered that it was the wrong size. And I plan, I study, I make these presentation decks long before they ever go out to you in an email. And you know what? This is the day, October 14th, 2025, that I realized I might not be perfect. I'm not Mary Poppins, and I'm too old to cry. So I didn't cry. I'm not going to burn the project. I'm not going to wallow in self-pity. I'm going to improvise. Okay, so sometimes we do things and we mess up, and I'm going to be the first to tell you I mess up a lot, right? And the best part about messing up, though, is knowing how you can correct something. So when I went to trim these, I had a, oh moment, right? And yeah, well, it kind of started at the beginning. We don't need to talk about it or whatever. But how I fixed these is I cut an inch strip for each side, and then I cut a 2 inch strip for the top and bottom. And then I just bordered it. And then I added a little bit of project batting in the sides so that it would still have oomph when we assemble this finally, right? And I thought about, how like these little tails of the flower are supposed to go here, with the border there, but with my mistake, it just didn't look right. So this month, these are my little black-eyed Susan bouquet here, right? But in reality, I probably before we assemble this, I'll go back and make these again. But this is what you need to realize that your files are perfect. My files were meh because they weren't to scale. And so I hope that you can laugh along with me with this because you know, it really bugs me when I do these things, but it also really bugs me if I don't share with you when I make mistakes and stuff, and those things happen. But just remember that nothing is ever ruined. I'm really happy with the way the pin tucks came out. I'm really happy with the way the little flowers look. So there's lots of positive things with this block. And also remember that, you know, you could also like slip with your ruler when you go to cut these out. You could I don't know, the dog could eat one or whatever, but things happen. So just don't be alarmed. And you know, also we sometimes get just enough fabric when you get a kit like this. So that's why it's always good to have the mindset that this is your quilt. It's going to be unique to you. Nobody's perfect. And you can improvise.
Well, I certainly had a lot of fun making this video and making this project despite the little hurdles. So I thank you so much for watching, and we only have two more months to go before this guy is complete. So I can't wait. And once again, if you want to see other tutorials, ones where I do everything perfect, don't forget to check out our Bernina of Naperville YouTube channel. It's easy. It's youtube.com/Bernina of Naperville, and there you can like, comment, and subscribe. Happy embroidery, sewing, crafting, all of that good stuff. Bye.